Okay. Welcome to our monthly Lunch and Learn. I am Sandra at Maryland Crime Victims Resource Center. Every month we go live and we talk about topics that we think could help people at home who are maybe trying to navigate the judicial system. And so today we're going to learn and try to create a better understanding of parole hearings, what those look like. And with us today, we have Johan, Joy, and Angie. We'll do a quick round robin to introduce each of our panelists, and then we'll hop right into some questions. Let's start with Johan.
Hi, everyone. My name is Johan Worley. I'm the staff attorney for Western or Mountain Maryland. I cover Allegheny, Garrett, and Washington counties. I also have the distinct privilege of living near a jurisdiction that has multiple prisons, both federal and state. And so often when we have potential clients reach out to the Maryland Crime Victims Resource Center and they're looking for information about parole hearings, or they're looking for someone to accompany them to a parole hearing, just by virtue of my location and proximity to the jails out in Western Maryland, I'm invariably tasked with responding to those questions or appearing at parole hearings with clients. So.
Wow. All right. Thanks, Johan. Joy?
Hi, my name is Joy, and I'm a survivor. My father was murdered in 1985 here in Maryland, and my oldest brother was murdered in 1997 in Virginia. So I've had more than my fair share of parole hearings, and so I'm just here to share my family's personal experiences and what to expect and how this process has affected us all.
Thanks, Joy. Angie?
Hi, I'm Angie. My brother was murdered here in Washington County, Maryland, and I'm here to do the same thing Joy is here to do. My brother was murdered in July of 1994. So if I can ease anybody's anxieties of going to parole hearings, I'm here to help.
Perfect. Thank you so much, ladies. And I think it's special to have these two survivors with us. I think it takes a lot of courage to speak publicly and be open about the experiences that you've had. So we really appreciate you guys being here with us today. So I guess let's hop in to parole hearings. I feel like it's never easy. This is an opportunity for people to get out of jail, right? Like they're coming into that. What does that process look like, Johan? Are people notified directly, and do people miss notifications? What can we do? And tell me about that process.
Yeah, Angie and Joy, feel free to sort of interject where appropriate. But my experience is that people are notified of parole hearings, typically outside of 3 months or so. And what happens during the underlying criminal court process is that hopefully it's a situation where crime victims and crime victims representatives have been given a so-called victim notification form. The importance of that form is it triggers a bunch of sort of post-conviction or post-sentencing rights that include the right to be notified of parole hearings. Now, the idea is that you fill out a victim notification form. Some cases are older, and I think the process itself was less uniform. But currently in the modern era, you fill out a victim notification form, you return that to the state attorney's office. The state attorney's office gets that to the courthouse. A copy of that form gets to DOC, the Department of Corrections. And then after that, at some point, you hope that it makes it to the Parole Commission. Things turn out to be really unfortunate, and maybe allows room for a more robust involvement on our part or my part when a victim notification form is filed, and for some reason someone at the Parole Commission drops the ball, or someone in the process. There's a break in the chain there, and you have the occasional circumstance where someone in prison is released without notification to the family. So that's worst case scenario. Best case scenario, the Parole Commission's well aware of people like Angie and Joy. They send out a letter. Typically, if they have your email, they might contact you by email. But they'll send you out a letter, months in advance. I would say between 3 and 6 months in advance of the intended parole hearing month. That correspondence will include, the expected month that they intend to have a parole hearing. It'll also provide, family members options as to how they want to approach this. They can, submit a statement to the parole commission. They can request a meeting with one of the parole commissioners in advance of a parole hearing. They can also, and Joy and Angie for sure have been in this position, but they can request an open parole hearing. The difference between an open parole hearing and a closed parole hearing or a non-open parole hearing is that the family, the loved ones, the survivors, the crime victims are going to they're requesting to appear before 2 commissioners at an open parole hearing, as opposed to a closed parole hearing where one commissioner is basically meeting with the inmate and doesn't have the same access to victim input. So I think by and large the results when you request an open parole hearing after you've been notified there's an expected parole hearing at some particular month in the future. I think the results as far as keeping the defendant or inmate in prison are much better when family members request that open parole hearing.
Okay, so let me stop you right there because I feel like I have a whole lot of questions already,
Okay.
and I tried to make notes and be really purposeful. So starting from the beginning, so you have to do a victim notification form
Yeah. So
to get notified. What if you don't do one?
Yeah, well, if you don't do one, there are family members and crime victims that are on top of these things. They are reaching out to us. They're reaching out to the state attorney's office. They're reaching out to the parole commission, and they might do this on a weekly or a monthly basis. They're just on top of that. They've also separately registered for something like the Victim Information Notification network or Vine, and they might get some notice that way. But I think that the best practice is to stay on top of it, like many crime victims and their representatives do. Also to make sure this victim notification form is filled. And then the parole commission, if you just Google Maryland Parole Commission, their website, it's a very basic website, but the important thing about that website is that it has a link to their own in-house form for notification, and I think that's best bet. I'm overly sort of cautious about these things, and I think the best practice is to do any and all of the above.
Okay, so let's say if someone is with us already, like they're already a client of ours at Maryland Crime Victims, we're ensuring that they do the victim notification form. But if they were, let's say they went through the process and they did not have us as their representative and they were just going through who tells them to do that form? Like if they don't do it, can they do it now? Like can we help them? Like what does that look like? Would they get notified anyway?
Well, they may not get notified, and that's the challenge, and that's where sort of things fall through the cracks here. Yeah, I would recommend they reach out to the state attorney's office to facilitate filling out a victim notification form. You can confirm whether or not said form has been filed. You go to Maryland Case Search, you type in the name of the defendant, and you should see, especially in the modern era, you should see a notification basically by the victim witness coordinator at the state attorney's office that the form has been filed. And obviously we can facilitate that as well. And it might make sense. It might make sense to focus more on the parole commission's form than the actual judicial victim notification form. Depending on what stage in the process you're in.
Okay, because that just seems like it would be a huge misstep to not do that, especially if you want to be involved in what that looks like down the line as a survivor, as a victim. So thanks for that. And then the other question I had, so you said they notify you 3 to 6 months. It's usually via letter or email, not phone calls.
Yeah, Angie and Joy, do you both want to speak to that?
Yeah, we've always received a letter and an email. So, and they typically have sent it to my mom. They've had her, I think in the previous parole hearings, they've had all of her information on file. But with the help of MCVRC, we also get notifications from Johan and the team. So we've definitely been not inundated in a good way with the notifications of these parole hearings. And one thing I will say, for my father's murderer, we've had 3 parole hearings now. The very first one, I mean, gosh, maybe 15 or so years ago, I was not there, and they only allowed my mom and one other family member to attend that one. So it was my mom and my sister at the time. And we were really bummed, but I don't think that we realized that we can advocate and push for the rest of the family to be there. So the subsequent hearings, that one just happened this year, April 2026, and the one before that was April 2024. All of us were there. And I would say, as a family members, I think it's important to advocate for your lost loved ones, no matter what, and to show family unity. So advocate for all immediate victims to be there. I mean, obviously, you can't have a room full of people, um, but and show up, because I feel like it makes a difference with the commissioners. I felt like I saw that in the 2024 hearing. The commissioner saw us. We were able to give our victim impact statement, which, even just being able to say our victim impact statement, is because of MCVRC, being able to say that in court during the trial and the whole nine. So speak your heart, speak your mind, and let them know how you feel. And I think that seeing a family together that is still there advocating for their lost ones is a very important piece.
Thanks, Joy.
Mhm.
Yeah, just to follow up on what Joyce said, the only real limitation now, again in the modern era, as to how many victim representatives or family members or crime victims and their loved ones can attend parole hearings at this point is really just a reflection of what the institutional limitations are. So there's a number of different prisons that host parole hearings in Maryland, and they all have different they're all set up differently, and they all have sort of different amounts of space. One prison, and I'm not sure they do parole hearings there anymore, had the unfortunate circumstance where crime victims representatives and the family members of the inmate would basically sit knee to knee during the parole hearing, and we never made traction on sort of changing that real unfortunate policy. So you're really kind of at the mercy of whatever the institutions are able to accommodate. And then occasionally, if it's a situation where an institution has a space, and you're initially getting pushback from someone at the commission, maybe the victim unit, saying no, we can't accommodate that many people. That might be an instance where Maryland Crime Victims Resource Center sort of escalates the situation just to ensure that the people that want to attend the parole hearing are actually there. In the alternative, and this is something that became something during the COVID era, out of necessity, we had parole hearings that were done telephonically. Now I think my opinion about that is that the results are likely to be better if you were attending a parole hearing in person. But there are a multitude of reasons why crime victims and their representatives don't want to appear in prison. I mean, who wants to go to an 1800s era, musty old, prison, like something out of the movies, and in Hagerstown, for example, you have people that don't want to see the offender face to face. You have people that live out of state. So I think now, until there's a reason for change, perhaps a telephonic parole hearing attendance is most certainly an option for people that are uncomfortable with attending open parole hearings in person at the facility.
I could imagine it being pretty. I'm sorry, Angie, go ahead.
I agree with the in-person more so than the telephone. I just feel like it's more impactful when you're there face to face. And I know, like you said, about the archaic the looks of some of these prisons, but at the same time, I don't want to be in the same room or in the same area as the person who murdered my brother. But also, too, I want him to know there's still people fighting for him. I want the parole commission to know that there are people still fighting for him. And each time I have to go, it's like yesterday to me. So I don't know. I come each time with more armor and more fuel because I've had time to think about it. I mean, 32 years to think about what has happened. And in the diminished capacity that everyone else thinks of it, I don't. There's no diminished capacity for me. And I'm sure Joy feels the same way. There is no diminished capacity. It will always be the same.
Yeah.
And the trauma that we've experienced from that, and we try to push that behind us, it's very hard. It's very hard. So being in person and being able to show the feelings that we have and voice our opinion and let them see the expressions, I think is very important.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm sure Joy and I are both two different people, and as opposed to many other people that would have to do this, but all I can say is ask the Lord for help and find your courage.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think bottom line, a sort of a common observation in the criminal justice or injustice system, or however you view it, on Maryland, whether you're dealing with court hearings or administrative hearings, like parole hearings, it's much harder for the authorities, whether they be judges or parole commissioners. It's much harder for them to tell you no to your face.
Exactly.
And so my basic fallback position is, where you can appear in person, appear in person.
Yeah, 100% agree. Now, Angie, can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you get to see the murderer see his face? Because we never got to. We always saw the back of him.
I've seen the back of him, but he's had to walk past me at two different occasions when we had to go to the prison. I think one that Johan might have been referring to that's very small, and we were sitting in very close proximity to family members of his, and he had to walk. I was on the outside seating. My dad was with me for the first one. He was to my right. The second one, my daughter was with me. She was to my right. I was closest to the entrance. So when he walked in, he had to walk past me within inches. I saw the back of his head. He was not allowed to address us. Obviously, he couldn't look in our direction, which I'm kind of glad. But at the same time, I've gotten past that, where I'm really prepared for anything for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm here to fight. I'm not here to roll over and play dead.
No, that's how I feel. And I wanted to, because, when my father was killed, I was 9.5 years old, right? So this man has been like a figment of my imagination for so long. And I want to put a face to this monster that did what he did to my family. So we were in the same room with him both times, but they would escort our family outside of the conference room, if you will. And they would bring him in. He would be seated with his back towards us, and then they would let us back in. So that's kind of how it happened. The first time we would be in separate rooms where we had the glass window that we can see in, and he couldn't see back. But the second parole this year, we were all in the same room. And so that was like, he was inches from me. Like I could have tapped him on the shoulder, is how close he was to me. And that was, it's kind of, you get this feeling, like I have so many emotions that rush through me in that moment. There's anger, there's like, I got chills in my body. Then there's that desire to just fight for my father and speak my truth and how I'm feeling, and look the commissioner straight in their eyes, because I also want them to know they didn't kill us.
That's right.
That we are here. And I again, going back to advocating for showing up in person, is to show that murderer that you may have taken our loved ones' lives, but you didn't take our lives. And as long as we're alive, we're going to keep showing up, and we're going to keep fighting to keep.
Amen.
So that's, to me, the most impactful part about it. But you'll go through a lot of emotions. And again, not saying that everyone is strong enough or may want to go through this, but if you are, 100% recommend it.
I agree.
Thanks for sharing that. I think that is probably such an intimidating situation. And I think that preparing people at home that have never gone through that experience is really something. I mean, it's such an asset to have. It's not something that you would talk about. Like, this is not a conversation that people would have. I mean, you're not, it's just not a regular thing. So, but I do think that it's useful to have kind of that information in your pocket if you're preparing for such a thing.
And I think it's so important, real quick, because this is a club nobody wants to be in.
Exactly.
It's such a lonely club, because I know, Angie, you're the first survivor that I have spoken to that has gone through a parole hearing. I don't know anyone else, and we just met on this call. And so in my day-to-day world, no one has experienced what my family has experienced. No one knows the challenges of waiting for, like, we're waiting now for the results of the hearing. I don't talk to my friends about it because it's just it's a hard conversation to have, and you feel like you're being the downer. And even when they ask and they care, it's how deep do you go with that, right? So
wait, can I interrupt you?
sure.
Don't ever be afraid to talk about it.
Yeah.
Don't ever be afraid to talk about it. My sister for years, and I think I spoke on this to Johan several times, my sister moved away from here the year after my brother was murdered. Mm-hmm. And she's technically never been back, only for a short period of time. She ran away, and she was far, far away, and I went to visit her, and she wouldn't even speak to me about it, and I forced her to, because I said suppression of something like this is the worst thing ever. Talking about it has brought me more peace than keeping it inside to myself. And if my friends think I'm a downer, then they're not my friends to begin with. People that care about you want to hear about you. They want to hear your story. They want to feel your pain. But the hardest thing is for anybody to understand, which I try to explain to people every day. You might have had somebody die of cancer or an automobile accident or, anything natural that would occur every day versus, murder is every day in the United States, but if you've never experienced murder, you can't explain it to anybody. You can't explain your feelings to anybody. I tried to tell my husband, and that trauma stays with you throughout your life. And you can work through it. You can go to counseling, but not even the counselor, unless they've experienced murder, knows how you feel. Yeah. And I feel like talking to you, because you understand, I think that's something that all of us need to learn to do, is talk about it to somebody. Like, I'd be more than happy to speak with you outside of this interview. Yeah. Because I think those kind of things are what we all need. And I am open to, I'm telling this to Sandra and Johan, I'm open to speaking to anyone. Yeah. I am not hiding whatever happened to me from anyone, because I think the world needs to know that you're not alone. There's people here that, I'd be even willing to sit in a parole hearing if someone couldn't take someone else with them. I don't know, I guess the capacity I've had to deal with it the rest of most of my life, I should say. My mom didn't go to anything. My sister never went to anything until 3 years ago. And then she decided that she wanted to fight because she basically wanted to give up. She said, I want to let this go. I want to live my life. And I said, I don't, because my brother didn't deserve what happened to him. Your father and your brother didn't deserve what happened to them. So it's people like us that need to hold the flame and keep running.
Thanks, Angie. Thanks for giving people space to kind of feel all the feelings, and I think that that's an important thing. We also I feel like this is a great plug for, we do have a homicide support group that meets hybrid. It really is, it's only homicide. It's different relationships. There's, husbands, wives, mothers, fathers, and they really can relate to each other like I think no one else can. And that space is such a sacred space. I only get invited at the beginning. It's like a secret club. They chat, and sometimes I get invited to talk about an event that I'm having, and then I leave because I don't want to fill that space with something that's not appropriate. So anyone at home that wants to tap into that, please reach out to us and we can connect you with the homicide support group. They meet monthly. Johan, you were talking about open and closed parole. So the survivors get to select which one, or the victims get to select what type of parole they want to have?
Well, I think the default is a closed parole hearing where members of the public would not appear. and address the commission essentially. And that would be a situation where it's one commissioner. There might be a case manager or someone with the inmate there, but I think, without having attended a closed parole hearing, I think that often it's just one commissioner or someone from the commission and the inmate that are discussing, what the inmate's doing, what their institutional adjustment has been, whether or not, they're good candidates for parole, whether or not they have a work plan or some plan, for living and working outside of the institution.
Okay.
But that's the primary difference. It has to be active.
Are not invited to that.
Right. Survivors have to actively request an open parole hearing.
Okay, so either way, the survivor would be notified that a parole hearing is going on. And then at that point, they would have to ask for it to be open so that they can do a victim impact statement and attend and do all those things, right?
Right. Yep.
Otherwise, it's a closed door, just kind of going over the points of parole with the defendant or what have you. And then whatever decision is made, are they also then notifying the survivor of what the results are? Is that, Angie, what you were saying you were going through?
Yes.
Okay. So you're just kind of waiting. It's like more
I
waiting.
haven't had mine yet. I think Joy is waiting.
Yeah, we're waiting.
There's always a lot of waiting, right? Yeah. And then I'm reading the questions that are on. So if I look like I'm in a daze, that's why. So you need to, if you move or if you change your email or if you change your not phone number, because phone numbers don't, because they don't call, right? So then you should notify victim the victim notification. You should do a new one.
Yeah, if you're our clients, and that is your primary concern, if there's the potential sort of collateral or post conviction or other issues in court as well. I mean, I think in a perfect world, best practice, and I'm not saying that this happens, but best practice if you move away would be to update your victim notification form with the state attorney's office, and then go to the Parole Commission website, print out their in-house notification form, fill that in, and then get that to the victim unit. I think that would be best course. I would also sign up, and I'm not sure. I'm assuming Angie and Joy are signed up for VineLink, or maybe Joy's mom is. I'm not sure. But I would, if you're moving out of state, I would recommend signing up for Maryland VineLink as well, which just adds to the possibility that you're going to be on top of everything that happens, both from the courts as well as the Parole Commission.
Okay, perfect. And then one more. I know that this was holding true with Angie's case, is that, like, let's say, and probably Joy's as well. I mean, Joy's mom is still with us. I had the lovely opportunity to meet her. She's so cute. If that you could have if there's a new person that is now the person to contact, right? Like, Joy's mom moves out of the area, or she's not able to make it because she's just not as close, that they can do they can also do a victim notification form.
Yeah, exactly. And I think probably that happened in some way, shape, or form with Angie after her dad passed. So yeah, that's absolutely recommended, and that happens pretty often.
And can there be more? I'm sorry, I've got a lot of questions. Can there be more than one person that's getting notified?
I don't see why not. I don't see why not.
Maybe there's a child that has been murdered and mom and dad aren't together. They would both want to be notified or what have you, and that would be okay. Okay, I think that's all the questions that. Hold on, let me just run through these. Okay, so just doing a new notification form, and then is the decision to release an inmate already made before the hearing?
I would hope not.
Right.
Joy.
I know. I would hope not. I don't want to say too much, right? So Johan, shut me up if I'm talking too much.
Yeah, I don't think so. That would violate the spirit of what we're happy. That would make a victim or a victim representative's right to address the Parole Commission, nonsense or meaningless. And so I think the idea is for their address to the commission to be of importance. My bottom line as far as like what my bottom line is they make the decisions at the end of the at the end of the parole hearing. I don't want to go to a deep dark place. And I think that the two things that they rely on most to justify their decision, and they both have to be in agreement, or else we're coming back and they have to bring in a third commissioner and have a tie break. And there's some other things that can happen, as in Joy's case, and Joy knows what I'm talking about. But I think at the end of the day, the commission is relying on what they heard from the victims or the victims' families, and they're also relying on what they perceive to be any remorse or lack thereof on the part of the inmate. They're really looking at those two things. At the end of that, they'll call for a timeout. The two commissioners will discuss what decision they need to come up with and why. And more often than not, they're pointing to those two major factors as being reasons to support their refusal or setting the case in for a so-called rehear, where they would have a parole hearing, 2, 3, 5 years down the line.
Yeah. And I do feel like our case is also a little different because there's two angles that he's trying to use to get out of prison. It's the Maryland law change that are providing shorter sentences for crimes like this. And when he committed the crime at 21, he was 21 at that time, the Maryland law is trying to say that he was young and they should not serve more than a 30-year sentence. And he was sentenced to life he was sentenced to life. So he's using that as one angle to try to get out, in addition to just the regular parole hearing. So we're fighting two battles. In the first battle, we didn't even realize we were fighting until we went to the 2024 parole hearing, where we felt like we were bamboozled by the state of Maryland and the parole board, because the state of Maryland was contacting us about his release with the law. And so we went in thinking that this was part of the parole board's decision. So you gotta also be careful and pay attention. And honestly, having an advocate like MCVRC has just been instrumental, because there's a lot of things that we just didn't know. And when we talk it through and share everything that we're going through, they're like, wait a minute, something doesn't sound right here. So they can also help advocate for us. But so that's why, for me, I am a little concerned about him being released this time around, based on he's served 41 years in prison now, about 40 to 41 years he's been in prison now. And throughout this last parole hearing, we felt pretty confident in the beginning, watching the commissioner's line of questioning to him, which was actually really insightful for me, because I'm sure because I was 9 when this happened, and being in court, what do I know or what do I remember? But I was able to hear more of what happened and how it happened in their frame of mind. I mean, these people murdered my father and then they went to the club that night. You know what I mean? Where is your remorse at that? You left a man dying, and my mom with him. My mom was right there when they shot and murdered my father. So so I'm just worried. I don't know how it's going to go about, but he still didn't show any remorse. So I'm really hoping that they see that. But towards the end of that parole hearing, the way they kind of left it open did not give us a lot of hope that it would be in our favor. So we don't know.
So just to touch on some of the things that Joy is talking about, we did do a lunch and learn, and it's on the Second Look Acts, the Second Look legislation that has been going on in Maryland. And you can kind of scroll through our YouTube to look for that. I want to say that we did that we did it in February or somewhere early on this year. And those second chance bills and legislation is an additional, Johan, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm going to try to non-lawyer this up, because it's kind of how I talk.
We're going to keep it free and easy.
Yeah, we're going to try to break this down a little bit. So there are regular ways to get out of jail with parole, and by being a good person and doing all these things. And taking courses and blah, 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 betterment and all those things. And there's like these ways that inmates can kind of show and prove that they are making changes in their life. Second Look At is a whole new slew of different ways that they can kind of get out of jail that are not the same as the other one. So they're just additional ways that they can get out. And it is making survivors and victims, because in this case, it's survivors, but it could be victims if it were a different type of crime, like, sexual assault, rape, whatever, that have to go through court and go through parole and go through hearings and go through cases again and again and again. So in this case, those of you at home might be like 2024, and now she has to go again in 2026. They're getting all these little coupons that are making families go into, back into the system repeatedly in close amount of times, right?
Right. Yeah, Angie's case is a 3-year rehear. Joy's case is a 2-year rehear. So this stuff is always at top of mind. And there's a bunch of sort of correspondence and litigation that happens in between. And then there's there are collateral hearings under the Second Look Act. I mean, really, the most recent rendition, I think, of the Second Look Act is really just a broadening of the Juvenile Restoration Act, which Angie's father's murder has been operating under because he was a juvenile, so-called juvenile lifer who killed her brother when he was, I think, 17 years old. Angie?
He was 8 days shy of being 18.
Yeah, 8 days shy of being 18. And so I think, you have this, but at base, it's a broadening of, this idea that, because someone was young, under the age of 18, or under the age of 23 or 26 or whatever the case may be, that their minds, hadn't fully developed, and they really don't appreciate, their criminal conduct in the same way that a 30-year-old perhaps would. So these. Right. Angie hasn't just been to parole hearings. She's been there. The defendant in her case went for a post-conviction, decades after the fact, basically alleging that, his attorney didn't do what they were supposed to do, 30 plus years ago. And so it gets crazy. And then you have these second look type hearings that are also happening in the courts. So, when Joy and Angie are talking about attending a parole hearing, that's what we're discussing right now. But what we're not discussing are all the other, commitments in, this effort on the inmate's part to get out of jail early, and all the efforts that are done by family members to sort of push back against a lot of this nonsense that's coming from, the judiciary and the legislative branch.
And which I just don't understand that law to begin with. It's like, go and release drug dealer, like, you know what I mean? I don't know, but you're trying to lessen a convicted murderer's sentence based on that. And I just feel like there are people, if they want to lower the inmate population, there are people that have committed lesser crimes that they can start with that were underage, and, start there before you start with murderers.
I agree. What made it even harder for us with my brother's case is my sister was only a few months older than the person who killed my brother. So, for us to go to court and then to say, well, somebody under the age of 18 or under the age of 25, their brain isn't fully developed. And, we basically came back with, my sister is 18 years old, and she gets angry, but that didn't send her out to kill somebody because they did something that made her mad. So, I struggle with that. I was 18 once. Yeah, I got angry, but I never thought once, because the circumstances that follow that. But like you said about that person going out to the club, the guy who murdered my brother, from the time that he shot him at 11 o'clock or 11:30 in the morning till the time that he was apprehended later that night, which was a good 12-hour span, was joyriding, spending the little bit of money that he stole from my brother, visiting friends, picking up friends, driving all over the place. Tell me he had any remorse for what he did.
Right.
And then lied to everybody that he was talking to about where the car came from, where the gun came from, and everything.
And
yet,
that's, I,
just
I,
roll over, play dead.
yeah, I agree with you there. Because this last parole hearing, we had to hear him talk about his bad childhood and what he
Not
went
my
through.
problem.
His stepfather. Well, let me tell you something. My family immigrated to this country. We had no money. My father was putting himself to school to better take care of his family. And you literally stripped that of us. My mom was in this country, a single parent to 4 children because of your actions. Now, we grew up with nothing, but we, like you, we didn't go out stealing, robbing, shooting, killing, doing all those things. So I have no feelings for that type of
Exactly.
conversation
I agree
because
with you.
you made a decision and you knew that decision was wrong. We all know that murder is wrong, period. I don't care how old you are, you know this. So anyway,
I agree.
I feel like this is like the conversations that we have at work. You guys should just like become attorneys and then just come work
Right.
at CDRC at that point. Like,
I wanted to
We're
go to
not come anyway.
if you want to help fight legislation, you know,
Yeah.
that's always coming around the corners.
Well, it's funny. Had I not bombed the LSAT, I was on my way to law school because I wanted to be a prosecuting attorney because at my brother's trial, as I was 21 at that time, I was just so fascinated by how the prosecutors fought for my family, you know, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to fight for other people that had gone through what we had gone through, but that damn LSAT, man. And I was like, nope. And I was in my 30s at the time. I'm like, you know what? Maybe I need to go a different route.
Let me go a different direction.
Let me go a different direction.
So thank you guys for that. And clearly, I mean, you know, it's something that really hits home when we start talking about the second chance stuff. I mean, I think that, you know, anyone in our organization kind of feels a certain way about it. And there's definitely points to be made. I think it's something that is always like, it's always on our agenda every year to kind of keep our eyes open for any modifications that are happening to ensure that, you know, victims aren't re-victimized, you know, time and time again, which unfortunately sounds like you guys, you know, have been. So, you know, all that we can do is fight to try to make things better and to enlighten people and to help people at home in hopes that, you know, other families don't have to go through, you know, the same things. Okay, so victim impact statements that are, the question is, does your victim impact statement given at the first parole hearing carry over to future parole hearings, or do you have to be there in person every time? Can you send in written testimony? So this is as it pertains to parole hearings, not to.
Ladies, do you want me to take that or you want to take that?
I mean, it can roll over if you want it to, but honestly, I feel like for me, each time I go, I learn a new piece of information, and that information is best coming from me and rewritten or even spoke from the heart sometimes. I mean, not everybody can shoot from the hip. I've learned to do it over the years, and I feel like my best statements come from that, because I'm not thinking too hard about it. It's just literally coming from memory and from my heart. And I mean, my brother has been my heart all my life. He, like I said multiple times, he didn't deserve what happened to him. And like Joy said, I'm still here. And I mean, if you would have wanted to kill somebody, if you would have known my whole family, the person you would have wanted to take out would have been me, because I'm the fighter.
Same. Like I am the family historian. Okay, I have every article from my father's dad, every article from my brother's dad.
Same
like,
here.
I keep everything, you know.
I felt as much like Johan as anybody else could, because I got a file about this thick of
same
pertaining to my brother.
Same. And I know that if my mom is no longer the head, it will, even though I'm the middle child, it will fall onto me.
Middle child.
To be the lead. And so, and to piggyback off of you, yes, we've written and spoken new victim impact statements each hearing. So yeah, we've
do you guys submit those to be a part of the file, or are those just all verbal? Like, does
they never asked me for a copy at the
it's always been verbal.
Now, if we go to court for like modification hearings, they do want a copy then.
Okay, so like when you go to a parole hearing and you say what you say, that's just it. It's just
recorded. It's okay. And
yes, it's recorded, and it's also subject to, and Joy can also speak to that, but it's also subject to the Maryland Public Information Act or whatever it is,
FOIA,
the state version of FOIA, right? And so those recordings are available to family members for a nominal fee, of course.
Yeah.
Oh, let me break that down. So FOIA is the Freedom of Information Act, and so people can call in and request in writing copies of what have you, and that's what FOIA is for those. And so I know that from when I worked for the government.
They'll send you a CD, so make sure you have.
They send you a CD, a CD.
CD.
Oh, a CD.
Yeah, and then you have to buy a separate CD player to plug into your computer.
I'm literally trying to figure out. I went online Googling where I can get that transition into a flash drive, but but I told my husband literally just last week, like, babe, we probably need to just keep a CD in the house, like, find an old one. Because
at that point, if your file is looking like Angie's file, you probably just need like an external hard drive, like one of those like 1 terabyte type.
Seriously. And I'm sitting there, you should have seen me scribbling. I had so many notes. I screenshot them to Johan from the parole hearing, which is important. And I was scribbling all of that before we even knew that we can get the recording,
get a copy
of
for
it.
a nominal fee, Johan says. So
and the only reason, but they told that to the inmate in the hearing. They weren't saying it to the family as we can get it. They had said to him, oh, if you want a copy of this hearing, you can pay the amount and get it. So that's what I overheard, and that's what I told you.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so that's good to know.
Do that.
So you can get copies of that, but they're not necessarily like in a paper file. They're everything, technology, Sandra. What are you thinking? It's not 1995 anymore. Just everything is electronic somewhere.
Right.
So that's good to know. And so we've got like 10 minutes left, and I wanted to talk about our role, MCBRC's role in the parole hearings, how we can help people, because Joy is also, she had mentioned several times, she's got a separate thing going on in Virginia where there's no MCBRC, right? So Johan, can you kind of take us through some of the things that we can help with, and what if people weren't with us from the beginning? They something happened and now they're going to a parole hearing how many years later, and they're kind of being bombarded like these ladies are with every 2 or 3 years they've got to do something. They can still call in, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think both in Angie and Joy's case, Maryland Crime Victims Resource Center was not in there for the earlier parole hearings. I feel like Angie's family was part of 2 or 3 parole hearings, perhaps, before I got involved. I'm not entirely sure.
No, 1 before you were involved.
1, okay. It might have been 2017. I think you're right.
Angie, we're literally twins in the worst way.
I know.
It's like just a couple years apart and everything.
It's
and it's so crazy. So sorry to interrupt, but
no, it's another day in the criminal justice matrix,
Right? Exactly.
Literally.
So we can help them. And then Johan, what does that look like for someone who's preparing for parole hearings, and they're like, you know what, I just saw this thing on YouTube or whatever. I feel like I need them with us. What is the benefit of us like being with them? And
for people like Angie and Joy, the first course of action is just get out of their way, and to facilitate, best way you can. Once I get involved, or once Maryland Crime Victims Resource gets involved, we sort of adopt a lot of the correspondence between the family and the commission at that point. I will request that that Joy be there, the rest of the family be there. I'll also ask that I be included on a so-called letter of authorization to attend. I'll assist with victim impact statements. The overarching sort of sensibility of the Parole Commission is that this is really a time for victims and victim representatives, and not necessarily a place for advocacy. So I think if an attorney represents a crime victim or a representative at a parole hearing, and they're wanting to go in there, guns blazing, and trying to lay a foundation for subsequent appellate work, and wanting to file motions with the commissioners there, I've tried that. It may not go well. I think we largely take a support role. If I'm, some people sort of might have more respect in the process and might be able to address the commission longer, i.e. people like Roberta Roper. But I think by and large, it's a support function I have there. I've had folks that are unable to get through their statement. I'll finish that for them. I know that they wanted to get an idea or a picture of a loved one or something like that before the commission, and they've kind of gone off track. And so I will slide the picture to the commissioners and say, you wanted to share this with the commissioners, right? That sort of thing. I think by and large, we're taking a secondary supportive role, and we don't, we're not sort of engaging in the practice of law, perhaps, unless it's a situation where, a family doesn't get notice, and God forbid, the person has been paroled and released, or just paroled, and the response to that looks different depending on whether or not the inmate's actually been released without notifying the family, or just been paroled and not released yet. There, I think the nature of the work changes for someone like myself, but I think by and large we're playing a supportive role, making sure that we have quarters for the lockers at the prison, that we've got copies of the statements, that everybody has their letter of authorization to appear, and that everything is sort of ready to rock and roll on the day of.
And let me just add two quick things about, you talked about the pictures. One of the things that I did is I got printed pins of my father on them. And so all of us family members would wear them in. They never took it from us. So we were able to get that through security and everything, and we just wear it. And I would say, take notes of the names of everybody that was in that room, the commissioners' names. Just write that information down in case it's needed to hand over to Johan or any of the attorneys if for follow-up. I realized this past hearing how instrumental that was, because we had conversations with different people in the prison, some related to the parole hearing, some just prison guards and things like that. And some names we remembered fully, some we remembered vaguely, but those were important names that we needed to get to Johan. So even if you don't think it's important, make a note of it, because you never know.
Yeah, to follow up with that, and you don't know perhaps what's entirely important. So it's good to have someone there who is sort of more objectively writing notes down, because in Joy's instance, for sure, her notes were instrumental, and me being able to draft a subsequent letter to the chairman of the Parole Commission, and I wouldn't have been able to do that without Joy's note taking. So,
good job, Joy.
Thank you.
Okay. Couple quick questions are rolling through. Will the victim be notified of the offender's address and any employment when they are paroled or put on work release?
I would say no, but I've never seen that type of notification.
Okay. I do know that we had someone who saw her mother's murderer walking down the street, and she had not been notified because I think she moved or something or other. She wasn't notified, and she called in and was devastated. She's just at work, and she's like, I think that's, and it was him.
Yeah.
That's my fear.
Yeah. It is devastating, and it happens more often than you would think. I think the best source of information like that, it doesn't matter whether you're dealing with like DOC, individualized prisons, even the prosecutor's office and everybody else. There's just this ultimate tendency to protect defendants and inmates and their personal information. Nobody wants to stick their neck out. Nobody wants to be sued or become the subject of litigation. I think in my experience, the best source for that type of information after release, because if someone's been paroled, they're still subject to supervision by the Department of Probation and Parole. And many of the times there's also a suspended sentence attached to their parole. So, invariably there's going to be a relationship between the person who's been released and an agent from the Department of Probation and Parole. And I think, agents more than anybody, and you just call your local probation office and say, hey, who's supervising such and such person? I have reason to believe they've been released from prison, and that they should be able to tell you within, seconds or minutes. But oftentimes those agents, either when you call them, or if you need to sort of escalate it and have someone like myself call them, they're generally the best source of that type of information. Are they in state? Are they out of state? Are they working? Or are they not working? Can you give me an idea what county they're in? You'd be surprised at what information you can get from an agent with the Department of Probation and Parole.
Do you always get notified if someone's released?
You should, yeah. If they have your information,
make sure that information's up to date. And then, do parole hearings always take place inside the prison, or are there some that are not in prisons?
I've only seen them in prisons.
Okay. I guess it's cheaper for them not to be transporting people around.
Yes.
Okay. I think, was there anything that you guys wanted to add that maybe we missed, or?
Stay strong. It's a hard process, but just stay strong and know that you're fighting for your loved ones.
I agree 100%.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like a lot. All right. I think that's all that we have today. Any other thoughts that you guys wanted to share? Last words, any info?
No. Keep fighting.
Keep fighting. We are here. We do have our homicide support group. We have some mental health help as well. If you find yourself that you're going through parole hearings or going through a court process criminally where it's taken place in Maryland and we can help you, please reach out. We are available here. Let me throw that banner up real quick. If you guys want to get in contact with us, you can go online and do an intake form. We service all of Maryland. Not all states have a victims resource center like we have here. We take as many cases as we can and try to help people navigate through the system. And like I said, we do have mental health services available and a support group. So just find us online. You can, give us a call. That's all that we have for today. Next month, I am working on something for next month. It is like how to file charges. I'm still working on it. I don't really have anything solidified just yet. I kind of feel like I had like a little mental block. I'm going to get on it though. I'm going to get on it. I promise. We'll announce it on our social media as soon as I get myself together. Had a few things going on, life keeps you busy, keeps you on your toes. Thank you, Johan, as always, for helping out today. I really appreciate it. And ladies,
amazing. Johan is just both of you, Sandra, Johan, you guys you're giving us the credit, but my goodness, for you guys to support families like that are constantly going through this type of trauma, like that takes a lot out of you as well. So I want to thank you always for your advocacy. And
absolutely.
Support.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And thank you both for making my job a whole lot easier. So
you're so welcome.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. I can tell you that these are two stories that I carry with me all the time, no matter how many people I meet. I think about you guys all the time. And so when Johan was like, hey, I think Angie and Joy, and I'm like, Angie and Joy, you don't even have to say anymore. It's a wrap. These ladies are always being advocates. I think, Angie's been at this fight for a long time. Joy, because her mom was kind of tasked with doing it and now has been an advocate. And, we've been behind the scenes, doing things. I appreciate you guys being so strong. I think that from a lot of the new people that I hear from on my end, I don't usually get to interact, with families until after their cases are already done, just because of the nature of my position versus, being an attorney or an advocate. But I think that, these are scary things that people that are new could use the help. they could use some of that guidance from people that have been through it. And it's unfortunate that you guys are at that stage where it's just been this long process.
We're the OGs.
Yeah, unfortunately. But I mean, we're so blessed to have such strong advocates that advocate for others. I mean, you guys are like survivors that are ready and willing to share your voice to help others along the way that are at the beginning stages, and that is more valuable than you could ever imagine. You guys being in the spaces that you're in now, like you said, you understand it, you get it, and you're speaking to those same people that are out there kind of working themselves up to kind of go through the same process. So thank you so much for sharing from your hearts. Johan, again, thank you so much, and we will see you guys next time.
Thank you. Take care. It's nice meeting you, Joy.
Yes, you too. Let's connect us. We got the emails.
Yeah.